Today we are speaking by telephone to Mr. John Osborne. John Osborne is a longtime trombone player in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He was in the 1 O'Clock Lab Band. He's played in many local bands around here, and he also has been a major music contractor here for the last 40 years. And John is one of the original gangsters in Phil Kelly's Inner Circle back in the 70s. So, John, we hope that maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you first met Phil Kelly.
Well, just to sort of clear, I think Phil came in the middle '60s, and the picture you took with Dick Cole and Chuck Mondernach, those were the guys he was using then. I was still in school. I really didn't start working for Phil until about 1970 when Ernie Chapman started hiring me for sessions for Phil, and you just showed up and Phil put the music out. The only thing you had to watch out for was Phil sort of had the tendency to, well, if he was going through the studio, you grabbed your music stand and grabbed the cable for the microphones because Phil had the tendency to sort of be like a bull in a china shop.
Yeah.
And stuff would be flying and it was going every which way and all of that. But, we did a lot of stuff. I primarily started when rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and that style of playing became in fashion because I could play that a little bit better than some of the other guys here in town, or they liked it better. I don't have any idea. But the main thing I can remember is working with Bill Guthrie. Bill Guthrie and I were Phil's trombone section or basic trombone section for years. About 70 on, 71, 72, 73. I don't know. Well, when did he leave?
I think it would be right at 1999. I think it's when he went to Washington.
Oh, 99. Okay. Well, I worked for him, from about 1970 on, 72 on, either in a section or with Bill Guthrie and myself. And then I played some solos for him too. I know one time I was doing a solo, and we were over Sound Techniques. I think it was over on Inwood Road, and I was the only guy there, and I played it real good. I had to pat myself on the back. But he said, "Okay, I want to stack it," and I said, "You want me to stack this?" He said, "Yeah, I want you to stack it. Play exactly what you played." So I played it again, and he went. After we finished, he went, "Man, that was perfect. That's unbelievable. How did you do that?" And I went, "I just sit here and played the part." And he said, "Man, it was perfect. It was exactly the same thing you played before." Well, Skip Frazee, I think, was the engineer, and Skip said, "Phil, I forgot to push the record button." So here I played this thing, and I really thought I was doing something real good. But I know one time Bill and I, we were doing a session for Phil, and we had to imitate airplanes flying over. So we had to sit down. Bill was playing bass trombone, I'm playing tenor, and we had to figure out how we could get the trombones to sound like airplanes. Like that. And Bill and I worked on it, and it came out perfect. So, but Phil's music was just always so innovative, and he really had a handle on like rock and roll and stuff, like the brass licks for that period of time. And I know one time we were doing a gig with Doc Severinsen, as a matter of fact, out in El Paso in the Sun Bowl, and we were outside, and there was a huge wind coming out of Mexico, and they had to have people come out of the audience and sit beside us and hold the music on the music stand because the wind was blowing so bad. Well, Phil was playing drums. This was one of the only times I I didn't work with Phil a whole lot, but this he was playing drums, and I think Doc or George Sherb or somebody yelled, "Hold her down, Phil," because it was windy, but Doc just loved Phil, you know. I mean, and Phil wrote one of the charts for Doc's album that we recorded here.
Yes, Spanish Dreams.
Yeah, and it was always a pleasure to work with Phil because he just knew what he was doing, and he was not only was he a great, and this is another trick, not only was he a great arranger, he was a great orchestrator. In other words, he knew what the instruments could do. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he knew what a trombone's supposed to do. He knew what trumpets, and he knew what woodwinds. And so he knew what they would do, and he'd write that so that it sounded great. You know, always sounded great and fun to play too.
Yeah.
And I know you talked to Paul Lime the other day, and we used to call Ernie Chapman used to call Paul Lime Road Hog, and because there was an album out at that time. Let's see, Road Hog and the Cadillac Cowboys, and and Ernie sort of gave Paul that nickname, Road Hog. But Paul was playing on everything, and it was just fun. You know, it was fun music. You just went in, played your part, and enjoyed it, and that's And we did a lot of work together too. I can't give you specific dates and stuff, which I wish I could. I didn't keep very good records, but we were busy. We had a lot of great times. And I told you the story about his Cadillac. I mean, his car is sitting outside the studio with the top down, and it's raining.
Go.
And he's got Phil was smoking cigarettes, and he had a big ashtray sitting on the console in between the seats, and it was full of cigarette butts and water. And the back seat, in between the back seat where it would fold down, there was a big, huge mushroom growing out of that seat, and looked in the floor, and the floorboard in the back where your feet were was just full of water because he couldn't put the top up on the car. He just drove it that way. And so Jay Saunders and I were just standing there going, "Man, can you believe this?" He said, "This is Phil. This is Phil." You know? He was a character too, but he was a fabulous musician. Fabulous.
So, John, you said you've done a lot of recordings. Can you remember some of the studios where you played with him?
Well, Summit, for one, remember we just drove by there today, was off of Greenville. Summit Recording, and I think it was Sound Techniques.
Okay.
We did a lot of stuff there. And that was on Inwood Road. And then, we might have, I don't remember exactly where we did it, but, Sound Techniques. I don't know if he ever wrote anything for Jam Recording Studios, and Jam, and then there was Pam's, which was who actually started the jingle business in the country. It was started right here in Dallas, and down off of 75, and I forget exactly the name of it, but that was one of the reasons that we were working. But there were several big studios in town. But Phil, I just remember him. We did that Ford tractor thing, and we played the convention, and the band was just killing it. Phil had really written well, and we were having a blast. But I think it was like 4 trombones, 4 trumpets. Paul Lime was playing, Ernie, Freddie Crane, all the Billy Ainsworth, and all the Wally Roberts Riggs was probably on it, all those guys. And it was, I wish I had a copy of that. You know, that was great, great playing. But I always learned a lot from Phil. You know, you just go in and play and enjoy it, and act like if you play like you're having fun, it comes through in the music. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote, so we just had a great time. And Bill Guthrie and I, we were just like, you know, ham and eggs, peas and carrots, whatever you want to call it. I mean, we really worked well together. And
well, the about that Ford presentation at the convention, do you remember what year that was and where you played that?
well, we played the convention at the Fairmont
Okay.
Hotel in one of the ballrooms. I don't know if it was the Regency or the International, but they were having the convention, the meetings there in the hotel, and we were in the ballroom, set up at one end of the room.
And did Phil write the music for that show?
Bill wrote the music. We recorded all of that music, and then we played it live.
Wow. Okay. All right, John, we saw you in a photograph last night playing with Doc Severinsen and Jim Riggs and with Phil on the drums. We're not exactly sure where that took place, but Paul tells us that Doc would take you guys all over the country and fly you there.
Oh yeah, yeah. The reason why Doc had a connection to Dallas was because of George Cherb, who was a trumpet player here in town. George had been on the road with the Tommy Dorsey Band for 10 years, and he realized it was time to get off the road when he was telling the bus driver how to get to the gig.
Oh,
And they
no.
could be out in East Jesus somewhere, you know.
Mm.
But anyway, Doc was in that trumpet section on the Dorsey Band with George, and they became real good friends. And so when Doc would do a gig, like, well, let's say anywhere in this 5-state area, like we used to go to New Orleans, we used to go up into St. Louis, we would go out west, he'd fly us wherever, you know, and he'd bring his book, and we'd have to sit there and sight read it. We didn't rehearse. Didn't have time for rehearsal. So we'd sit there and sight read the book, you know. And because all the guys in the band were such great readers. And plus we had Don Thomas and George Cherb in the trumpet section, and Doc just loved Don Thomas, trumpet player.
Oh my God.
Just loved him. And I mean, I was playing one gig. It might be the gig Riggs was on, and we did it one night, and I played this solo, and Doc Gilt looks up at me and says, "Hey, Biggin," because you know I'm 6'4". Anyway, so he said, "Tomorrow night, music down here beside me." So the next night we were going long run, and he pulls the chart up, and he said, "Hey, get down here." So I had to get down and get right beside him and play, and we were playing duets together on this piece, you know. And when I finished, and I really played it pretty well, I'll have to admit. When I was getting back on the bandstand, Riggs looked at me and said, "Man, that was beautiful." And that was a high compliment. But like I was talking about a compliment, when Phil was doing his albums and doing them out in Washington, he got a bunch of the LA guys to come up and sort of, you know, ringers, as we call them. You know, I think he had Andy Martin and guys like that come up and play. And so there was an article, and I don't remember who it was, but they asked Phil about trombones, and Phil mentioned Andy Martin, myself, being a Dallas guy, and he was already in Washington. Me and another guy, and I forget who it was, and I can't remember. But that was an honor to be mentioned, for Phil to mention me in the same article as Andy Martin, because Andy Martin is the guy in LA, you know. And so, you know, it was just, just something. I know he and Randy, they would get together and talk to each other about once a month. Jay went up there and stayed with him for a couple of days because he wanted Jay to play lead trumpet on something. So he flies around wherever, but Doc flew us everywhere.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, after
You know,
after Phil moved up to Washington, did you maintain contact with Phil?
no, I personally didn't, but Jay did. A lot of the other guys did. I didn't have his phone number, and
Oh,
I really didn't want to bug him. He was, I knew he was too busy, but I should have. That's just bad on my part. I'm sorry I didn't keep up with him.
oh, well, you got to see him so much anyway. I mean, you probably got to play with him and meet with him more than most other musicians. So you should consider yourself
Oh
very
yeah,
lucky.
oh yeah, yeah. He was something. He was. I can just remember because he had a big beard and he had big bushy hair at that time, and I can just remember him sitting behind the control uh, panel, looking out over with that bushy hair and everything, and like, wow, here we go, stomp it off and stand back.
So it was Phil when he ran his sessions, I mean, was he punctual? Was he efficient? I mean, how did he describe just a typical session with Phil, please?
Well, you just came in and well, where do you want me to sit? You'd ask the engineer, where do you want me to sit? And you sit down, you get your horn out, and maybe 9 times out of maybe the music was on the stand, maybe it wasn't. He hadn't passed it out yet. So you got the music, you looked at it, and the and then you just do a run through, and that's when he would, if he had any mistakes, like copy mistakes or something like that, you correct it, and you go for the feel that he wanted, and he would tell you, well, I want a little more of this, I want a little more of that, I want this, like the airplane, I want an airplane, So he ran the session, but he was always, I think Paul summed it up, he was fast. He got it done in a hurry because in the recording studio, time is money.
Yes.
And one of the reasons why you get hired in the recording business is, of course, you can play and you can sight read, but producers like Phil, they like to see the same people because they know they can trust them. It's when they see a new face and they don't know how that person plays, they can get a little antsy, you know. So that's why, Ernie would always hire Bill and myself, and we get in there and have fun and play.
Did you have any personal favorite tune or music? I mean, something that sticks in your mind, something that still comes to you?
Well, it's Sweet Georgia Upside Down.
Yeah.
That big band chart, because some of the rehearsal guys have it in, and Doc has it in his book, and he played it on the Tonight Show band quite a few times.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah, he used to feature that tune quite a bit, because
John,
it was such a good tune.
John, did you play at the Villager in Lou Marini's band?
Yes, I was there. I was the first trombone player in that band. That band until Bobby Burgess came into town, and he played lead for a while. And I remember standing out in the parking lot with Bobby. I don't know if remember Bobby Burgess, Butter Burgess.
Butter Burgess.
Yeah, look him up. He's a famous guy, and we were standing there, and he'd been on the road with Woody and all of these guys who've been in New York. I mean, and helped create the Stan Kenton trombone sound. But we were standing out in the parking lot after a gig with Louis' band, and he looked at me and he said, "When are you going to come out with the Lions?" Which means, "You're ready, kid. Come on out and see what you can do."
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that band was actually Well, there was another rehearsal band before that, but this was a good rehearsal band. Yeah, we played there all the time. Ed Rodney used. I mean, there's guys that were on the road and had a night off would come over and sit in.
Oh, wow.
So we got to hear a lot of great players, and they got to hear us too. So it was a lot of fun. It was an education. As Louis Marini told Tom Malone when they got to New York and started, because they both were from here, they got to New York and started working up there. And Louis looked at Tom and said, "I think we were overeducated." Meaning they were introduced to everything here in Dallas.
Wow.
Recording, gigs, different types of gigs and stuff like that. They were prepared to do whatever they needed to do up there. And another good thing about Dallas is you weren't pigeonholed. That means you just weren't, well, some guys were classified as a legit player, or you could only play this type of music or that type of music. If you could play, you played. Now you had to make the change. You didn't go into a church rehearsal or something like that and try to blow the walls down. You had to adjust to where you were doing, but that was the beauty of the Dallas area.
Well,
adjusting to what you needed to do.
well, we know that Phil was a master of all styles of music, and I'm sure that you probably were run through the gauntlet in the recording studios. You already told us about the planes that you had to emulate, but can you think of another innovative or bizarre moment where Phil had you do something that wasn't indicative of a trombone player?
Well, me telling you about doing a solo
Yes.
and then recording it and playing it well, and he said, "Well, let's stack it."
Yeah.
That you don't do that.
Yeah.
That put extra pressure on me, But I did it again and played it real well, and he liked it. So that was, but the second time I played it, they forgot to punch the button.
John, did you ever spend any social time with John? I mean, with Phil outside of recording?
Well, I think Phil and I wound up at Joe Miller's one night
Ah,
late, and they had closed. Joe had closed the place down, and we were sort of having a few tidings, as you might say.
No, there you go.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. Fortunately, none of us wound up in jail, which is always a credit. Oh, I'll tell you another story. And I don't know if Phil was involved with this or not, but there used to be a recording studio on Lower Greenville Avenue. And they were doing a big, huge session over there. Phil was probably playing on it. But anyway, there was the session got out at 2:00 in the morning. And they were all hungry. Everything was closed. And so there was a restaurant right across the street from the recording studio called Vihan's. And so George gets on the telephone and calls Vihan up and says, "Vihan, you've got to get down here. Your restaurant is on fire."
Oh.
And Vihan says, "Oh, I'll be right down." So he goes and gets in his car, comes flying down there. Well, the restaurant wasn't on fire. George comes and says, "Oh, man, I'm glad you got here." He says, "Why are you here? Could you fix us something to eat?"
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, that was, Chuck Bonner and I had talked about this. The guys back then were different than the guys today. I mean, today everything's a little more serious. I don't know.
Sounds a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, there were so many characters.
Yeah.
Those guys were really characters, and they could play. They could really play. And as far as, I just remember going in and sitting down and playing and having fun. Everything was written out so well, you just recorded it. And that was the way we did it,
Oh, John. Well, John, you've been a fountain of information, and gosh, it's been so good to talk to you finally. Um,
Right. Yeah.
did you ever go to Tony Griffith's out there on off of Regal Row?
Oh, you mean the Merriman Studios out there on Regal?
Yeah, yeah, it became Tony Griffith after a while.
Yeah. Well, that was Jim Long bought that
Yeah.
and set Tom in that,
Hmm.
and we did a ton of recording. I mean, a lot of recording in that
Oh,
for Tom. And but then I guess Tony took over later.
bro,
Uh,
Tony had the biggest smile on his face when he met me. He just says, "Me and your dad made lots of money in the '80s. We just commercial after commercial after commercial."
oh yeah, well, I was in on a lot of that. It's it was something. Yeah, that was. Well, we just called the studio Regal Row, TM, and then there's
Oh yeah.
TM now, which is up in Carrollton.
Oh wow. I didn't know it moved up there.
Yeah, and they're doing. I drive by the old Regal Road TM, and it's all boarded. It's not boarded up, but there's fences around it now. You know,
Mm.
and there was. Yeah, I basically I forget some of the names, but we did a lot. Like I say, we did a lot of stuff.
Mm.
I wish I had some of it. But Don Thomas used to get recordings of it, but I don't know where that stuff wound up.
well, we hope to talk to his son John at some point, and he might have them. Uh, and then we also are going to be looking at call sheets at the local union's office. I'll be going up there next week to start looking through those. If I see your name, I'll make sure that I pick your brain later, and I'll say a studio and a date, and it might even have the name of the project that you're working on. And
Okay.
yeah, we've also got a bunch of music up online already, and I'll bet dollars to donuts you play in quite a few of those.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet I do too. Yeah,
Mhm.
I really do. We used to do theme parks, like Six Flags and all of that. Well, they have shows, and we used to do a lot of shows for Atlantic City, but all these theme parks would have shows, and we
Mhm.
used to go in and we'd be in there like at least 6 hours a day for like 4 or 5 days in a row, and then we were all working at the Fairmont in the house band too.
Oh
So
wow.
we were really really busy. Anyway, when you're doing that type of high pressure work like that, you can get a little dingy. You can have a tendency to maybe lose your concentration. Well, the engineer was smart enough that Mel Blanc had pre-recorded all of the voiceovers like Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig and all of that. He punched that in on the track, and we'd be sitting there and we'd be listening to Porky Pig and Pronghorn, Leghorn, and all of this. And, it was funny. It was good.
That's funny.
But that just gives you some idea of how intense it was. Some of it you just had to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
your concentration had to be, really good. And your chops had. You had to know how to play.
oh, absolutely.
Because if you didn't play right, you wouldn't last. You don't play an instrument for like 6-7 hours a day and not do it right.
Yeah.
And we had one of the best brass teachers in the country, Don Jacoby,
Mm.
and he helped me a bunch, as far as breathing and stuff like that. He was really a master, So, but I did a bunch of sessions with him, a lot of gigs with him too. It was fun. But he was one of the guys that got Phil from up north to Dallas.
Mm. Yeah.
Because they were in a car coming down here, and it was Jake was driving, Whitey Thomas was there, Trella was there, and Phil was in the back seat writing charts. for the band on the way to work at it's an airport. It's the airport hotel, Love Field, and it's a big tall building right now. But that's where there was a club upstairs, and that's where that's where they worked. Phil was working in that band at that time, and Jake was the front man. He was the front man, and there was a big pool in front of the bandstand. Well, every night half the band would wind up in that pool. And I forget the cabaret or something. I forget the name of that hotel. But Jake used to say, yeah, they had some times with that, you know. But Phil was in that band when he came down here.
Wow. But this is fantastic. It's your great stories, and it brings
Yeah,
my dad.
well,
It brings my dad to life, to hear, tidbits like that, because a lot of these, I was very, very young, or I wasn't when he was coming down with Trella and Don Jacoby, and I don't even think I was born yet. I think I probably
no,
had just been born because that I was still up in Ohio.
yeah, yeah, it was something, boy. But he and Tom Merriman were real good friends because they were both such incredible talents, and they
Yeah.
respected each other too,
Yeah.
You know, and I have to tell you this about Phil. Phil had a funny way of chair dancing. Did you ever see him do that?
Uh-uh.
No, when the section was going on and he's doing a playback and the rhythm section's going and going, he had a chair dance. He'd move his arms and he'd sort of like the boogaloo and all of that. And Merriman sit there and look at him and try to imitate. Yeah, Phil. Oh yeah, Phil used to do his chair dancing.
Oh, that's
I can
funny.
remember that.
That's the
Yeah,
first time we heard that.
yeah. No, he would. Phil would do some chair dancing if he liked it.
Awesome.
That is funny, funny, funny.
Well,
Well, I wish I could tell you more. It's been a while, so you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
well,
we appreciate
Uh,
talking to you. It was really a enlightening to hear a lot of stuff, and the chair dance. That's a new one on me right there. That's really funny because his father-in-law at one time said Kelly is a only he's only agile and from a sitting position. So that kind of goes along
yeah,
with that.
that makes sense.
yeah. Oh, he would chair dance. His arms be flailing it. He's bouncing in the chair, and he was having fun.
That's
We
funny.
we were having fun too. So, well, you guys, I sure appreciate it, and I wish I could remember more, but age stuff sort of slips under the doormat or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you think of something else, you can always call and contact me or Daryl, and we'll do another one. So,
Awesome.
Okay, well,
John,
sounds great.
thank you very much, sir.
thank you, John.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right.